but Muammar will always be in our hearts. The spectacular U-turn of Al Jazeera, from being a somewhat critical voice of imperialism's wars of aggression in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Palestine, to being an open facilitator of the same aggression against Libya, Syria, and even now the progressive nations of Latin America, was perhaps the greatest propaganda trick I have seen in my lifetime. Co-opting the support of their faithful Arab viewers in the West, whose voices garnered particular prominence during the fashionable so-called Arab Spring, was an important move in order to get all progressive circles in the West to join in the essential criminalization of Gaddafi, when those very circles should have, in contrast, been elevating the status of the not-so-fashionable Libyan Jamahiriya and learning from it. Now all cards are on the table. Al Jazeera's Director General Wada Kanfar has resigned following the release of WikiLeaks cables, which revealed he has been taking orders from none other than the CIA. He has been replaced by a member of the Qatari royal family, which has been heavily engaged in the war against its fellow Arab brothers and sisters in Libya. But despite the role of Al Jazeera being clear as day now, it continues to get away with the same tricks of tugging on the liberal heartstrings of westernized audiences with its stories about how people in sovereign states of the global south's greatest tragedy is their lack of Western democracy, never mind that it has failed in the West. But despite Al Jazeera's interest in championing this ideology is obviously straightforward. It hosts the United States' largest military base in the Middle East, CENTCOM, and they are, of course, close friends. Leaving the Rixos Hotel, where I had been trapped for 5 days, was the most surreal and probably the worst day of my life. It was a bad day. The safe, secure, welcoming city, full of life and warmth that I had driven through days previously had transformed. It lay in ruins, and you could not look in any direction without seeing guns or heavy weaponry. Many people had gone into hiding, been killed, and thousands of others had fled. And the people that I knew who remained, who had been the very people who had helped me to learn about the glorious recent history of Gaddafi's Libya, were inevitably traumatized and in a complete state of shock. Libya reached the point, as Dan said, of having the highest standard of living in Africa, a high level of literacy, universal healthcare and free university education, a high status for women in society, and the greatest degree of equality for the large black population in the whole of North Africa and the Middle East. Those 40 years of revolutionary achievements have now been reversed. And for what? A year ago, after crippling wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and with the growing economic crisis of the imperialist nations, it seemed a remote possibility that the West would have the capacity to embark on another costly and embarrassing war. It seems that the hegemony of the West was rapidly on its way out. But as Gaddafi's close brother Hugo Chavez said in his recent letter to the United Nations General Assembly, right now there is a very serious threat to global peace, he said. A new cycle of colonial wars which started in Libya with the sinister objective of refreshing the capitalist global system, end quote. He knows that his country will be targeted in that cycle, with the very same model that they used against Libya and are now using against Syria. In the absence of an effective anti-imperialist media that can challenge and preempt the tricks of imperialism through its global media, it is the role of all progressive people to champion the sovereign states of the global south, who, like Libya and Syria, are a thorn in the side of the West. Otherwise, they will be picked off one by one to add fuel to the dying fire of imperialism. And on that note, I want to end with my wholehearted thanks to the heroic Green Libyan resistance, which continues to amaze the world in their ability to stave off the world's most powerful military machine. As Gaddafi said, not only are they defending Libya, but also Syria, Iran, Algeria, the African continent, and the entire global south. Thank you.